Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobs one downfield. Caught ball by Gronkowski inside the 20 to the 15-10. Gronkowski to the 5 to the 4-yard line. Holy guacamole.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up the middle. It's intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. No. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, baby!
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Hello and happy Victory Monday. 1 day removed from Victory Sunday, and 2 days removed from a Buccaneer victory, 31-23 over the Washington football team. Tampa Bay gets their first playoff win since all the way back Super Bowl 37 in 2003. So a playoff win is very long overdue for everybody in Tampa Bay. But welcome back to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Back at you today for episode 160. Today we're going to go over the top performers from Sunday's win. We'll catch you up on the injury news that is causing some lineup shifts this week. And then before we wrap things up, we'll talk about what's really changed in Tampa Bay since that fateful night in Week 9. But before we get to all that, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucks fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. Happy Victory Monday, my friend.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I never thought I'd ask you hear me that question.
No?
I never thought I'd hear you ask me that question. I could be doing a little bit better. I don't know what's been going on with me lately. I don't know if I'm just developing something over time. I don't know if my brain is turning to mush from doing 2 to 3 podcasts a week for 18, 19 weeks in a row. But lately I've had this really bad problem with like mixing up my words. Like I literally just told you I never thought I'd ask you hear me that question. And I expected everybody to just act like it didn't happen. And I don't know what the hell's wrong with me, Evan, but I need to go see a doctor here soon.
I don't know, man. I can't tell you. Maybe it is just too much on the brain. You're thinking about it too much.
Well, it's an exciting time nonetheless. I mean, yeah, everybody gets a little bit tripped up when they're excited, but dude, a playoff win. Last week we were doing our first ever postseason show, and now we're actually here to talk about a victory. Like I said, 31-23 over Taylor Heineke and the Washington football team. But
Heineke.
Yeah, man, a game that was a little too close for comfort at times, and a game that really gave us a lot of questions about this team. But a game that sets up round 3 for the Buccaneers in New Orleans this coming Sunday. We know that the Bucs are going to be playing New Orleans because, you know, the Bears weren't able to get the job done, which you can't really ever count on Chicago to do anything right. So here we are, but.
Well, I mean, the main reason they're going to New Orleans, and people ask me this, it's because the Rams won. So if the Rams wouldn't have beat the Seahawks, then the Bucs would have been going to Green Bay. Okay. But since the Rams won, the Rams are now the lowest seed standing in the playoffs. So the lowest seed will go to the highest seed.
There we go. Before we go any further, I am contractually obligated to let you guys know that this podcast is brought to you by our good friends over at betonline.ag. The playoffs are here, and if you have a good feeling about the team that's going to knock off Kansas City, if you got a good feeling about, you know, maybe that team being the Browns next week, look out. I'll tell you what, if you want to spend your money on whatever the hell you want to spend it on, BetOnline is your place to go. From game spreads and totals to team, player, and coaching props, BetOnline gives you more options to wager than any other place online. And of course, you've always got the online casino as well, which never closes. So head over to betonline.ag today. Take advantage of all the great sign-up bonuses. BetOnline, your online sportsbook expert. Also, support for Cannon Fire Jesus Christ. Support for CFP is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Listen, sometimes it's tough going below the belt. Sometimes you got to get down there and just, you know, trim some things up. I get it, but it's tough. If you don't have a mirror, you got to throw a leg up on the counter. It gets awkward. Everything's just there. You know what I mean? If you want to have a little bit easier of a time dealing with it, then you should check out our friends over at Manscaped. That's why they have redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created, and they just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Cannon20 at manscaped.com. Once again, that's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code Cannon20. So let's get into the show. Usually we open things up with our game review, which we're going to do here today, just like we always do, I guess. But let's go over some top performers, because while this defense left a lot of questions coming out of the matchup with Washington, the offense had its fair share of top performers. The first one being the guy that we started with every single week, TB12. Playoff Tom is activated, 22 for 40, 381 yards, 2 touchdowns. What did you think of Tom's evening?
I mean, for our YouTube viewers, you can tell by the little smirk on my face. But I mean, just what you said, that's playoff Tommy Brady right there, baby. That throw to Mike Evans with 4 minutes left when Jonathan Allen was right in his face, man, that was a thing of beauty right there. And definitely he showed up, and the entire offense really. I mean, we'll talk about some individuals when we get into the actual game review on the offense, because it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. But yeah, I mean, he came to play, and you could tell he was locked in, he was dialed in, and yeah, I mean, 381 yards on this Washington defense, that is a darn good defense, and he had a bunch of drops too. So yeah. He had two touchdowns, no turnovers. That was a big thing. 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, almost 400 yards, and would have had 400 yards had there not been some drops, and would have had 4 touchdowns had Chris Godwin and Cameron Brate caught touchdowns instead of dropped the ball. But yeah, I mean, an uncharacteristic night for some guys on the Bucs team as far as drops go. But I mean, yeah, it didn't really stop Brady. I mean, he was a man on a mission, and they got the job done.
Now, speaking of playoff Tom, something that we saw against Washington that I don't think we've seen a whole lot of this season. I heard them talking about it on the Pat McAfee show today, but you want to talk about playoff Brady? He was pretty comfortable laying into some people. He was pretty vocal with some guys who were messing up on the team.
I know what you're talking about, I think, because I watched that segment. I actually just got done watching the
Well, he had yelled at Cam Brate. I want to say it was their last possession of the first half. And then towards the end of the game, Pat was talking about it on his show, and it was hilarious. But towards the end of the game, Bucks are kneeing it out, and I guess one of the tight ends is what it was described as, was kind of, moseying around the huddle. And Tom was like, "Hey, get your fucking ass over here." Like, you could see it on TV. He was, he was pretty stern, but, that comes with the territory. That's just, like I said before, that's playoff Tom, man. Exactly.
I mean, that's... he knows what it takes. The dude's been there. The dude's been in every single situation you can be. He's been eliminated in pretty much every way you can be eliminated. He's won in pretty much every way you can win in the playoffs. It's just he knows what to do. He knows what it takes. And he was angry at Cameron Brate earlier too, because on the one sack, Cameron Brate kept running his route instead of coming back to the ball, which would have, Brady probably would have thrown it to him. So he was a little bit angry there. But yeah, he knows that, that sack right there, it was on 3rd down, I think. That sack could end up, you give the ball right back, and that could change things. He knows just how important each possession is in a regular season game, but then it's 10 times more important in the playoffs. The intensity level goes up in the playoffs, and you can tell he knows what he's doing. And if you don't have full trust in this guy, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. On the game preview show last week, we talked about this being a game for the offense to just pound the rock, give the ball to Ronald Jones 20-plus times. Well, lo and behold, Ronald Jones didn't end up playing. Fans were greeted to Leonard Fournette being your starting running back, and he got the majority of the carries. His night looked like this: 19 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown. He also caught 4 passes for 39 yards. So he stepped up really big after not expecting to get the start that he had said. Coming into that game, Ronald Jones, I think, was really ready to give it a go, and I think this coaching staff was ready for it. But in pregame, Ronald Jones, I guess, hurt himself, a quad injury sometime during warmups, and then, that's when they let Fournette know he was going to be the bell cow back that night. But I think he did a pretty damn good job for a guy on short notice.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell he was that was a guy that really boosted up the intensity. He was doing some things we haven't seen all regular season, and he saved his best game for the best time, and he may need it again next week in New Orleans. Who knows? We don't know. Obviously, they haven't practiced at all. The Bucs still are not practicing today. They have like a walkthrough tomorrow, I think, and then practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I would assume. So. I mean, who knows how the severity of Jones's quad injury? I mean, it sucks for him. But yeah, Fournette stepped in and did do well, especially just like you said, on a short notice when you're not preparing to really start. And I mean, he like I said, he did some things. He looked good catching the ball. They did that one screen and got like 25 yards. I was like shocked.
I think that's like the only successful running back screen we've seen all season.
Yeah, I mean, I think I tweeted something similar to that. I was like, that might have been like the first one. Like I've seen that's like gone over 5 yards. We've seen
better screens with Gronk than we have our running backs.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't even do screens with Gronk. They've done it like 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a good night. And if Jones can't go in New Orleans, they're going to need another good performance from Fournette. I still think that, yeah, sure, running the ball is all fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, they still threw the ball over 40 times. So you put the ball in your best player's hands, and your best player is Tom Brady. So, or one of your best players is Tom Brady, and I think that's the right move. And I think I like their offensive game plan. There was a little bit too much running on first down for me, a little bit too much, but I mean, if you're picking up 4 or 5 yards on every first down when you run it, I'm not going to complain too much. So
yeah. Now, while we're talking about the running game, we talked about the good with Leonard Fournette. Let's talk about the bad with Keyshawn Vaughan. He got some playoff action. It was more than forgettable.
Looked decent until there was 2 things. One, I think his first play, Brady got hurried, and Vaughn didn't turn his head, and Brady threw it to him, and it was like no man's land.
Yeah,
it was incomplete, and Brady like threw his arms up, and Vaughn was like, "What? Like he's got to turn your head quicker than that, rookie," you know. And then the other, obviously the fumble, which was a decent run to start, and then he can't get out of his own way. Everybody's screaming for him to come in. Everybody's saying, "Oh, this, that. He can be a better pass catching back. He can be this." Well, man, when you come in with limited snaps, you can't fumble the ball like that. You can't, turn your head and look for the ball when the quarterback's looking for you. I mean, it's just small things. And he's a rookie. I mean, that's rookie mistakes right there. But it's just not something that can happen.
Yeah.
So Leshaw Mccoy was injured, so actually the Bucs only had 2 running backs in this game because McCoy was placed on the injury report and then it was not even active. So we'll see if McCoy's able to go, because if Jones isn't able to go and McCoy isn't, then they might call up CJ Prosise from the practice squad, who they just signed to the practice squad. So that might end up being what they're doing. But I don't know how many carries you're going to see Vaughn get for the rest of the way, because he definitely has opportunities, but he just didn't make the most out of them at all.
Yeah, and the magnitude of those mistakes is only going to be magnified by
they were past midfield. They were past midfield on that fumble too, so they were going into field goal range as well.
Right, but when you're in the playoffs and you make mistakes like that, they're going to be far more memorable just because, your entire season's on the line. I don't know, that might have something to do with it. But as far as Ronald Jones goes, and then we'll move on here. He couldn't get loose, the quad contusion. He kind of battled it all week at practice. It swelled up on him before the game, wasn't able to get loose out of it. And that's ultimately the reason he didn't play from what we've been hearing. His status is still to be determined this week. I have a feeling that by the Thursday show, we'll have an update for you guys, and we'll keep you posted on that as soon as we find out more. Let's talk about these wide receivers. The greatest Buccaneer wide receiver in history. I don't even think it needs to be said at this point, but I still will. Mike Evans, 6 days removed from a hyperextended knee, and he goes out there, 6 receptions, 119 yards. He breaks Keyshawn Johnson's franchise record for receiving yards in a playoff game. What a performance for big number 13.
Dude's on one leg, man. I mean, that's just, you wouldn't be able to tell. I mean, there was a few times he walked off a little gingerly. It seemed like it maybe stunned him a little bit, but I mean, just running his routes, he was sliding. I was like, man, with that hyperextended knee, he must be all right, because he would not be sliding like that. It wouldn't look like that. So, I mean, he was running nice comebacks, deep curls. He was doing all that stuff, as well as the streak plays. They had him They had an incomplete ball, which just went off his fingertips. That was just a shot downfield. And then they had the one, like I said, that Brady just delivered a beautiful ball. Yeah. I mean, this dude's just a baller. I mean, that's all it is. And he's going to go. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's going to hopefully, obviously, a ring would help him out immensely to get into the Hall. But yeah, he's the best Bucs wide receiver of all time. He's 26, 27 years old. I mean, this dude, it's not like he's 34 and it's just now, like this dude is going to be, it's going to be a while before you see any wide receiver that's going to break Mike Evans' Buccaneers records. Oh yeah. It's going to be a little bit until you see a guy maybe even come close to that. But yeah, I mean, he's just, you can always rely on him. You really can. I mean, it's just a gutty performance and a big-time performance when they needed it, because I think, we can talk about the other receiver really quick. The other guys didn't step up as much, and Mike Evans stepped up in a huge way.
And it's crazy because a bad night for this receiver in particular is still a career day for most guys. But Chris Godwin, 5 receptions, 79 yards, and a touchdown. Looks great.
Not if you read that, just that, it's fine.
But the thing with 14 is that Saturday night he had a case of the dropsies, which is extremely uncharacteristic. I mean, Chris Godwin is the guy who literally catches everything. So we're not going to go.
He might have the most reliable hands on the team. Probably.
We're not going to go into long detail about what's happening with Chris Godwin because nothing's really happening to him. But I mean, ultimately, I just have to boil this down to a case of, it's a big stage. Nerves, it's his first time in the playoffs, and maybe he was a little shaken up.
Yeah, so some of them were, like the one in the end zone he should have caught, but Darby was right there too, so it's decent coverage.
That when I first saw that in real time, I thought it was just a good play by the defensive back.
I thought he broke it up too, but yeah, upon further review, Godwin should have caught it. The one he dove out for, but still, that's a catch he normally makes. Just a lot of uncharacteristic stuff, and I would understand it if that was like. If it was sort of like the one, in the Raiders game when he injured his finger and then he came back in versus New Orleans with that splint, I would understand the drops then. But like the splints are out. Like he's done with that. Like he's good. And very, very uncharacteristic. I wouldn't expect it 2 weeks in a row, and it's not nothing to worry about. But you put all them drops and you make them into catches, and I mean he goes over 100 yards too. So and Brady is over 400 yards, and that's a darn good defense they're playing. So I mean, just another impressive night.
Yeah, can't expect that from Godwin 2 weeks in a row, like you had said, and call it a bold prediction if you want. I don't think it's too bold to assume, but he's going to have a big bounce back game next week.
There was a point in the game where I tweeted, I was like, you're going to have to get to the point where you're just going to have to take him off the field. Like, just for a few plays or something. Just get his mind right or something, because it was after that one, I think, that he dove out for, but, like, it was right in his hands. He just dropped it. It would have been a gain of, like, 20 yards. Like, I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is, just like you said earlier, this is the playoffs. Like, you got to make that play. Yeah. That is a play you have to make, and he wasn't. And luckily, Mike Evans and, Cameron Brate, of all people, stepped up.
Yeah, Cameron Brate was actually
big time.
The next guy that I had on my list here, 4 receptions and 80 yards, probably his biggest game since Tom Brady has been a Buck. And it was great to see, because if anybody on that offense is still Mr. Reliable, it's number 84.
Yeah, should have had a touchdown, but oh well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, man, just another drop touchdown. Just can't happen. I mean, the good thing is Cameron Brate dropped that touchdown. Then they scored a touchdown with Leonard Fournette on the next play. However, that Chris Godwin, that drop, the next play was Gronkowski, and Gronkowski was pushed out of the end zone. Bucs had to settle for 3. Yeah. That's 7 instead of 3. It's 3 instead of 7. I mean, that can't happen in next week. No, that cannot happen.
Speaking of Gronk, I think he only had that one target all night. He had a pretty quiet night through the air, but I'll tell you what, watching
it was clear what their game plan was.
Watching back on the film of this game, Rob Gronkowski was absolutely manhandling some of his blockers.
It was absolutely clear what they told Rob Gronkowski to do.
He's a blocking tight end, baby.
Yeah, that's what he's here for. That's why Tom Brady was like, "Oh my God, this is Donovan Smith's gonna be protecting me. No, I gotta get Rob Gronkowski here." I mean, if Cameron Brate would have been doing what Gronkowski was doing, it would have ended well, and the Bucs might have lost. Gronkowski, he's maybe not prime Gronkowski, like as far as pass blocking and like catching and stuff like that goes, but he's darn sure close to it.
I mean, he's the best blocking tight end on the roster by a good 10
Oh,
miles.
yeah, easily. I mean, Anthony Auclair is probably the next best one, and he's not great. So, if a healthy OJ Howard, that would change things. But I think OJ's a solid blocker for a tight end. But yeah, it was evident what their game plan was, and let's just give a quick shout out to that O line. I'm gonna take a mini victory here, Rhett.
Okay, go ahead.
Everybody who has criticized me for not criticizing one man in particular on the offensive line, I haven't heard many ats to me this week. Not sure why, because everybody seems to be real quiet this week. Donovan Smith, kudos, my friend.
Yeah.
Kudos, because well done, sir. Well done against Chase Young. I didn't even know Young played. I mean, we were talking about that at the end of the game.
What was his final stat line? Like 2
I don't
tackles
know.
and
He was solid against the run. Chase Young stopped a few runs, but he didn't touch Brady. Like he said, he wanted Tom. He didn't get him. So
yeah, Donovan Smith played one of the best games of his entire career. He held Chase Young to a very quiet night, but that entire offensive line, they really imposed their will for most of the game. And I mean, what was cool is that, we saw those running back screens, the ones that we did. You got to see some raw athleticism when those guys got downfield. I mean, I don't know if there is anything
Ryan Jensen got upfield quick on that one.
Dude, there is nothing more exciting in this offense than watching guys like Ryan Jensen, Ali Marpet, and Donovan Smith run full speed downhill, ready to just annihilate somebody. They're headhunters on that O-line. Now,
yeah,
they still gave up 3 sacks. It is what it is, I guess. But let's look at the biggest development from that offensive line coming out of this game. Former Buccaneer Ted Larson found himself back in the lineup at right guard. Alex Kappa fractured his ankle in the middle of the game, and he had to run off the field. Aaron Stinney is going to end up being your starter this week at right guard, but Ted Larson was obviously the weak link after Kappa made his exit.
Oh man, the Aaron Payne ate his lunch money a few times. I mean, Larson filled it okay for a guy that just got put on the spot, but yeah, and De'Aaron Payne's a good player. Like it's not, but man, he got beat a few times, and so it sucks for Alex Kappa because he was having a pretty good season, and it's going to be a big blow, but hopefully. Aaron Stinney, I mean, they weren't going to try Joe Hague again. So
Joe Hague had a rough night too.
It was either going to be, even though he had 1 rep, John Ledyard tweeted out on a run that him and Tristan Wirfs just right next to each other just dominated somebody. It was impressive. But so they weren't going to try Joe Hague again. So it was either going to be Ted Larson or Aaron Stinney, and Ted Larson just didn't do enough. I think he filled in okay. But he just didn't do enough, I don't think. So they're going to roll with Stinney, and I mean, it's not horrible. It's like somebody asked me, they're like, is he good? I was like, he's a backup on a team that doesn't have great offensive line depth. So no, he's not very good, but he's the best option they have, I think. So you do with what you can. See, I can't talk either.
It's contagious this time of year, man. Everybody's brain just turns into mush. All right, one more stat line I wanted to talk over, and then we're going to go ahead and move on here. But Antonio Brown, 2 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdown. But that's not really the stat line I wanted to talk about. Antonio Brown is, over these last 3 games or 4 games, I think he's got like 6 touchdowns.
You want 1 in the Atlanta game? That's 1. 2, 1 in the Detroit game. 2, 5.
Okay, so 5 touchdowns over 4 games.
Yeah.
I mean, what a streak for this guy. He is, he's definitely finding his role in this offense, and that's pretty encouraging when you compare where Antonio Brown was in this offense to, week 9, the last time they were squaring off against New Orleans, to this week.
He had no idea what he was doing week 9. I mean, he had just gotten there, just came off suspension. This is going to be a different, and obviously we'll talk about it we're not going to spoil the preview show much, but it'll be a different Antonio Brown that the Saints will see. So, big time. I mean, he was kind of invisible out in the second half. Didn't do a ton in the second half, but had that nice end around where it felt like he was running forever.
Yeah.
And his acceleration is just crazy. So, and then obviously that touchdown, pretty good. So, yeah, if they can get that from Antonio Brown, he doesn't need to go off every time. I mean, they're paying a dude $1 million, and they were set at receiver anyway. Like, they have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Antonio Brown just needs to do what he did on Saturday. Really, just make a few impact plays and don't screw up. That's it. That's all you gotta do. And if you do that, you'll be good.
Pretty much. Before we get into the rest of this game review, I want to remind everybody that too much of anything is bad, but too much sports is barely enough. With all of that in mind, say hello to January 2021. From an expanded NFL playoff, the College Football National Championship being played tonight, if you listen to this on Monday. I got Bama by like 10, by the way. I don't think Ohio State can hang with them, but that's neither here nor there. To the return of the NBA, the NHL, there is a lot going on in the sports world right now, and it's safe to say it is one of the best months to be a fan of sports. If you want to add some excitement to the games you love, then it's the perfect time to check out MyBookie. They'll hook you up with a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 when you sign up, and they'll keep the good times rolling with giveaways, free bets, and huge contests all year long. It's simple. Sign up, enter promo code CannonFire, and get your deposit matched halfway up to $1,000. Promo code CannonFire, one word, CannonFire. That way they know that we sent you. And they'll match your deposit halfway up to $1,000. So head over to MyBookie today and start 2021 off on the right foot. This year, bet with the best. Bet with MyBookie. Promo code CannonFire. Don't forget it, folks. That is great stuff, and it really helps the show. So if I've got any of my betting friends, we've got 2 outlets for you, but one of them we got a promo code for, so just remember that part. All right, so let's get into the rest of this game review. We got a little bit more to talk about. I want to talk about the NFL's best and brightest in officiating on full display for the playoffs this past weekend. I'll tell you what, this game probably could have been over a little bit sooner had that fumble call gone the right way, huh?
Listen. Well, I sent you a text I'm not going to repeat in all capital letters. I can't repeat it.
Sure you can. It's a podcast. We're not on the radio.
No. We like to be... This is like the Nickelodeon version almost.
Oh, this is the... Yeah, guys, this is the Nickelodeon of BUCS podcasts.
I'm like Lex Lumpkin, man. Yeah. By the way, shout out Lex Lumpkin, because that dude's a cool dude. He was working it on the sideline yesterday during that boring Saints Bears game. If you weren't watching Nickelodeon one, if you were watching the one with Tony Romo and Jim Nantz, you probably fell asleep.
Man, I'll tell you what. The one thing I didn't like about the Nickelodeon broadcast is that they lied to the kids. All right?
My God, they were spreading. Every punt seemed like it was.
They were spreading misinformation to the youth that punting is fun.
Yeah.
The one girl in the booth whose job was to just literally ham it up every time they punted.
Yeah. Oh man, look how high that is! I was like,
whoa!
They punted. Yeah, that's good. Good stuff. Yeah, but I mean, you got to figure out what it's geared towards. So I saw some people that were complaining about it. I was like, come on, like
right?
it's geared towards like kids.
I think anybody who took an actual look at that and was like, "Oh, this commentary is corny. It's all of this stuff." Well, it's not for you. And I will say that I think the NFL did a really good job with that. I think you should have more.
How about
games
that? How about that little F-bomb? Huh? Love that.
Oh man, somebody took that clip from SpongeBob where it's like F is for friends. But it was F is for, and then they put the clip right there. But I'm glad we got ourselves an F-bomb on Nickelodeon. Nothing says NFL and kids television like an errant
Cordero Patterson F-bomb. Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to the game we were talking about.
Talking about the fumble call.
Yeah, I was getting ready to drop an F-bomb about that fumble call. So that's just awful. I can't even explain it because it's just so bad. I mean, they were saying on the broadcast, and they clearly wanted Washington to win. Okay, by the way, the entire Tony Dungy, Mike Tirico, and Gene Steratore clearly did not want Tampa to win that game.
Did you hear that Tony Dungy was really impressed with Tyler Heineke?
Oh my God! If I heard it one more time, it's like he was a kid. Like, come on, dude. Like, I understand, like, it's the feel-good story and stuff. Like, yeah, like whatever. He played good, but man, oh man, if I heard one more thing, like, did you remember who's on the other sideline? Yeah, it's the greatest quarterback ever.
Dude, I thought it was the coolest thing ever that we got Dungy announcing the Bucs' first playoff game in 13 years.
Oh, thanks.
And then you just kind of realize halfway through the first quarter when Heineke starts to show a little bit of moves down there, the rest was history.
Yeah, but anyways, I mean, Gene Steratz was saying that his forward progress, or no, Tony Dungy said forward progress. Steratz said, well, there's no clear recovery when you could clearly see Shaq Barrett, who's the guy that ended up with the ball. And when the whole pile went away, Shaq Barrett was the guy that ended up with the ball. And they say that's not a clear recovery when it shows on the replay him falling on it. Like, get out of here. And it would have given the Bucs. The Washington, I don't think they scored. The Washington didn't score on that drive. But it would have given the Bucs, it was 18-7 at the time, and it would have given the Bucs the ball. They would have been in field goal range already with like a minute 20 left. Yeah. So it's either they're kicking a field goal or they're scoring a touchdown, and it's either 21-7 or 25-7. Like, come on, that's huge. Like that call sucked. That, and then in the end zone, he bobbled that ball. Okay, if you're gonna talk about a catch, the dude bobbled the football, did not have it. Okay, I personally would just change the rule that if you catch the ball, you catch the ball, right? And like all this control throughout the catch. But technically, the rule is you have to maintain full control throughout the whole process of the catch. That is the NFL's stupid rule.
I was waiting to hear the Nickelodeon broadcast explain to kids what a catch is.
Oh God. Well, I saw one tweet. It was like, I want the Nickelodeon broadcast to explain to the kids what Bounty Gate was. I was like, oh man. See, kids, they tried to take people's heads off, and they got caught doing it. It's like when SpongeBob gets mad at Patrick and he wants to throw a Krabby Patty at him, but Squidward catches him. That's what that was like. So, anyways, I don't even know where I was. So I mean, just the refs were just bad, man. You have to maintain the full process, the full possession of the catch. He bobbles it, they call it a touchdown anyway. It was a good throw, but the dude bobbled it. Like, come on. Yeah. I mean, I'm not excusing the Bucs' defensive performance, but those two in particular, I was like, come on, dude. And then I saw people complaining about the Carlton Davis non-pass interference, which Davis did get there. He got there early. But he got there early, showed up on replay. And Warren Sapp actually had a good tweet. He said, football is played in real time. It's not played in replay. Yeah. So, it was a bang play. And just like you said, so they're not going to call that. Like, whatever. Like, if you're going to complain about that, but then just completely ignore the fumble thing, like, whatever. But let's get on to this defense because I don't even know. We should have done the offense last because it would have been ended on a positive note.
So let's talk about this defensive performance. I mean, really quickly, just to close out, those refs, they were bad all weekend. Like, there were a lot of baffling calls wild card weekend.
How is that not a fumble in the Bills Colts game? Like, that is just atrocious.
Dude,
that might almost be worse than the Bucs call there. That might almost be. It's not worse because I'm biased, but it might almost be worse because that is clear as day. I don't understand. Like, oh man, whatever.
So let's get into this defensive performance, and I'm actually going to start things off with some props, some well-deserved props, not to anybody on the Tampa Bay roster, but props to Heineke. I mean, he gave us some anxiety-inducing moves inside of the pocket. The guy played incredibly well.
Listen,
and I mean, that one play.
That was a lock.
Play.
You know that was a lock when he was announced as a starter.
Oh, dude. I mean, there is one play that comes to mind, and I think a lot of people agree with me here. I know you wanted to talk about it on the show, but let's talk about that one play. Okay, Washington is in scoring distance. Heineke drops back, stands in the pocket, pressure coming, pressure is there. There are 5 guys in red and pewter uniforms just standing around him, and what does he do? He Houdinis his skinny ass out of the pile, runs up, dives for the pylon, touchdown Washington to get them back in the game. What the hell?
Paying a dude $11 million to just not tackle a guy. Yeah, so on that play, when I saw it, so they have Shaq Barrett, Khalil Davis, Ndamukong Suh, and Jason Pierre-Paul, and they rushed 4. So those are the guys that they rush. Khalil Davis actually got a little bit of a push, and Ndamukong Suh was pretty much a non-factor on that play, and Shaq Barrett was a non-factor on that play. Which besides recovering the fumble, Shaq Barrett, I didn't even know he played. He was a ghost. So Jason Pierre-Paul ends up getting off his block. So it's actually decent coverage at first because there's nobody open. So Jason Pierre-Paul ends up getting off his block, and he has a clear shot at him, and he just whiffs. Like, come on, dude. Like, are you serious? Like, you've got to be kidding me,
It's a Pro
right?
Bowler.
I mean, it shouldn't be. I'm going to say that right now. He shouldn't be. There is tons of guys. If you're going to put anybody on that defense as a Pro Bowler, Levante David, Devin White, those two guys definitely deserve it more than Jason Pierre-Paul. I'm sorry, but they do.
People are going to
make play.
think this is the JPP Bash podcast because
Yeah.
we put out the quote about how he hasn't been playing very much, and
Yeah, right.
here we are saying he doesn't deserve to be a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, it's just it's bad. That was awful, and that's in the playoffs is a play you have to make, man. You have to make that play. I don't understand. Now, one thing I will say, Scott Reynolds on Pewter Report's podcast after the game did mention that Jason Pierre-Paul's knee injury is not just something that they put on the injury report. That's real, and it's actually he's playing sort of on like 1.5 legs pretty much. So he's not 100% healthy. I get it, right? But that doesn't excuse you completely whiffing on a quarterback that you have a clear shot at. And I mean, Shaq Barrett, where are you at? Yeah. Khalil Davis got a push. Where's the Ndamukong Suh at? Suh was invisible. The entire defensive line. You can't tell me there was one guy on that front four that played well. I mean, really, there's nobody. They have no pressure, okay? And guess what? They're not going to get pressure. People are going to have to accept that when they rush 4 guys, they ain't getting there. They're not doing it, okay? Not this year. It's not with. I mean, Vita Vea, the loss was huge. I didn't think it was going to be that big to the pass rush because they ain't getting there with 4 guys. They're not. It's not happening.
And that's what I kind of wanted to talk about as we shift our focus into this defense as a whole. I know we talked about that one play, but let's kind of break down what you thought of the entire evening. Bucks got the job done, but I don't think they're going to beat New Orleans. I don't think they have a chance in hell of slowing down New Orleans if we see another defensive performance like the one we saw against Washington.
Oh, and Arians knows that. Arians admitted that.
Yeah.
And he literally said almost exactly what you just said.
It's a two-way street with this defense. They are getting Devin White back this week, which is huge for the pass rush. That was what was hurting the most against Washington. But Shaq Barrett, like we had just talked about in particular, he has been far too quiet this season. JPP these last few games, I think, can be attributed to the knee, but Shaq Barrett isn't a guy who has showed up on the injury report all season long. The Bucks need a big game from him next week if he wants to leave here with a good impression to any team that might want to pick him up on free agency. Because I can tell you right now, and I think a lot of other people can tell you the same thing, he's not going to get the money that he wants to get. He's going to get paid less than probably what he's getting paid right now on the franchise tag.
Yeah, he's not getting 16. I don't think he's getting 16 from anybody. The Bucks are paying Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett this season a combined $28.3 million. At least that's how much our cap hits are combined. And they're just getting zero production. Yeah. Just zero. $28.3 million. I'd rather just minus 20 of that, go out and sign an elite pass rusher for $20 million a year, and have $8 million left over and just let him go to work, because these guys, I mean, we said it even before the season. We're like, we think those guys are good, but they're not elite pass rushers. Like, they're not. Okay. Shaq Barrett wasn't getting 19.5 sacks again. It wasn't. I think Shaq Barrett's a guy that can get you 8 to 10 sacks a year, and I think Jason Pierre-Paul is a guy that can probably get you 8 to 10 sacks a year. They don't have that guy that's going to get consistently 12, 13, 14, 15 sacks a year. They don't have it. So just like you said, Shaq Barrett doesn't have many excuses, and he's just not showing up. And this is when you need your highest paid players to show up, and they're going to need them to show up in New Orleans, whether they blitz or not. If they blitz, fine. When the Bucs were blitzing, the defensive linemen still just could not win anything.
Yeah,
like they couldn't win any one-on-one blocks, and it was really frustrating to see. So, I mean, everybody can say, well, Atlanta Week 17. I tried to warn about the pass rush. They said, Atlanta Week 17. They didn't have Devin White. They didn't have Shaq Barrett. I was like, okay. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, but you've been warning people about this 4-man pass rush since the week before the Raiders game. Like, let's not fool ourselves here. We've been talking about this for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, well, what was one of the biggest things I said before the season? I said one of my biggest concerns is the depth that they have, right?
At a pass rusher, a true pass rusher.
The depth that they have on the outside linebackers, those edge rushers. And there just is none. Anthony Nelson, right? Like, come on, Anthony Nelson is that dude, and like it's either like Jason Pierre-Paul or Shaq Barrett. They're always there, right? So let me just look at this. Jason Pierre-Paul's defensive snap count for this season, right? The percentage of plays, the lowest percentage of plays he ever played in a game this year was 78% of the plays in Week 3 versus Denver. The next one is 79% versus New Orleans Week 9. Okay? Other than that, all of them are in the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah.
So, you know why his knee's hurting? Because he's worn out. And I think that might be a thing too.
That's what we had said about both of our pass rushers, Shaq and JPP. I think like week 4 or 5, we had kind of noted like, hey, take a look at the snap count, and these guys are playing up to 85+%.
Now Shaq has played some games. Shaq had 66% against Minnesota, so 68% against New Orleans. So, Shaq's played a little bit less than Jason Pierre-Paul, but these guys are just worn out, and Anthony Nelson isn't good enough, and that's why they miss Carl Nassib. But even Carl Nassib is another guy that's going to get you maybe 6 sacks a year. They don't have that guy that can just rush the freaking passer.
Oh man, I wish we had Carl Nassib. Carl Nassib is a 10-sack guy. I'm telling you.
No, I just got done saying he's not. He's not.
Yes, he is. If you get Carl Nassib, let's just say straight up trade right before the season starts. If you have Carl Nassib in the shoes of Jason Pierre-Paul this season, I guarantee you he has at least 10 sacks.
No, he doesn't.
Okay, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Carl Nassib,
Jason Pierre-Paul is a better player than Carl Nassib.
I just think Carl Nassib has more upside at this point in their careers.
Jason Pierre-Paul is a better player than Carl Nassib. That's pretty clear.
I'm not disagreeing that he's a better player, but I think Carl Nassib is a guy that this defensive line desperately needs. He's the style
he desperately needs as a guy that can give Pierre-Paul and Barrett rest.
Yeah,
it's different if Carl Nassib is playing 90% of the snaps, because if you swap them out, and Nassib's playing the same number of snaps.
Okay.
It's just they're playing too much, and it's because the management, Jason Light, was unable. He had a hell of an offseason. Yeah. But he wasn't able to secure a backup pass rusher. And only it's his own fault. He had plenty of chances. Maybe don't pick Keyshawn Vaughan in the 3rd round, a running back that's barely going to play. Maybe pick an edge rusher. Maybe pick an interior defensive lineman that you can sub Sue, and you don't have to play 6th round pick Khalil Davis in a playoff game. I don't know. It's just that's something that they're going to have to target this offseason. And I think they will. Jason Light, one thing he does do well, I think, is when he recognizes a need, he goes after it. So I think you are going to see – I don't think he's going to be trying to get starters at the edge rushers and the interior defensive line necessarily, but I think he's going to look for a lot of depth there. I think he doesn't want that situation again. He knows, everybody knows, Jason Pierre-Paul doesn't want to come off the field. I understand that. But at some point, if you're playing like crap, come on. Yeah. He has just not been the same. So, we can talk about the secondary and linebackers and stuff now, but that's sort of my end rant on a defensive line. It's not going to get any better, folks. It's not. Maybe they win one battle here or there, but unless the Bucs blitz, I don't think they're going to get there with a 4-man rush. And one of their sacks on Levante David on a blitz, right? They just even though Taylor Heineke did do a good job, right? Heineke, he did a good job of avoiding some of them. I'll give them that, right? Because if Alex Smith plays, the Bucs do have more sacks. I'll say that. But the Bucs 4-man pass rush just still little to be desired, and the Saints offensive line is better than Washington's, so be ready.
Absolutely. Listen, I shouldn't apologize because somebody told me recently I got to stop apologizing for things that aren't my fault, but I guess I am going to apologize for my outburst. I'm just a really big stand for Carl Nassib. I love that guy, and I wish they never let him go. But I wanted to get your 2 cents on the rest of this defense before we move on to our final segment of the show. But what did you think? Because they did have a turnover. Kevin Minter did a really good job, I think, putting a hand on the football.
That was Minter's only play, so.
Yeah. But what did you think of the rest of the unit throughout the afternoon? Is there anything that they did well?
Vontae David played all right. Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield, I thought they had a pretty good game in run defense.
Yeah, I thought Jordan Whitehead had a couple of really good textbook tackles.
Yeah. Corners, I don't think Sean Murphy-Bunting had as bad of a night as people were going to say. I mean, he had that pick, which obviously it's a deflection, and he allowed the touchdown, but, man, that's a perfect throw. I'm sorry. I still think.
Dude, I was so pissed. I was so pissed that a quarterback like Heineke was throwing dimes like that on us, because it always happens. The Buccaneers are historically bad against unknown
Yeah, every time. Like I said, a lock. An absolute lock. I mean, yeah, Bucs made it easy on Heineke sometimes, but other times I'll give him credit. I even tweeted it on that touchdown that I said wasn't a really touchdown, but I was like, it's just a perfect throw.
Yeah.
I think the coverage for SMB there was fine. It was a perfect throw. You can't beat a perfect throw sometimes. So, I mean, Carlton Davis didn't have his best game, but in first game back, hopefully he was just getting his feet wet. But I mean, it all comes down to, man, they just got to play man coverage. I mean, and Bruce Arians, I don't know if he had a talk with Todd Bowles because, comments after the game, he literally said, if we have another defensive performance like that, we ain't going to beat nobody.
Yeah.
And then, from John Ledyard, he comes out here and says, John Ledyard has the quote from Arians. And it's
about the Bears game?
Yeah, so Arians, it says, Arians says he thought the Bears did a great job of containing Drew Brees. And then it's the quote, except on the one drive when they played all that zone coverage. Okay, cool. So that's basically telling me.
Realization is the first step.
Yeah, that's basically telling me that, hey, okay, that's putting pressure on your defensive coordinator, huh?
Yeah.
Because if the Bucs go out and just play all zone coverage, you're going to be like, so why'd you make that comment? Anyways, some breaking news on the defense.
Oh, let's go.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, so it's not good stuff. So you're saying we can end the show and then post it on social media? We don't have to break it on the show?
It's not good stuff, but
oh no.
Kevin Minter is going on the COVID-19 list. So
they won't. No.
I don't know if it's a close contact thing. It's Monday, so we don't know if it's a positive or not. Because if it's not a positive, it's Monday, and they play on Sunday, so he'll likely be back if it's not a positive. But we'll see what happens. Doesn't seem like it was 15 minutes ago, and I haven't heard anything else about anybody else. So
yeah, well,
don't know.
You know how those things transpire, so I mean, we'll definitely take a close eye on it. And if anything else happens, we'll probably end up jumping over on YouTube Live and talking about it. But as of right now,
they just made life too easy for Heineke. And you know what? When you're playing zone coverage, it all comes back to you need a 4-man pass rush, and they don't have it. So, since you don't have a 4-man pass rush, guess what? You got to play man to man. Well, when it all, against the Chiefs, sure, play zone. I think playing zone is the right move against the Chiefs because they can just beat you over the top. That's when you play zone, when a team can beat you over the top like that. When you play, these teams that don't really have a vertical threat per se, you gotta play man. You just do. You gotta play man. You gotta bump them at the line, and just hope that your physical corners that you've drafted can make plays, and especially this week. I mean. Obviously I'm not going to get really into it. We'll talk about them, but we'll talk about it on Thursday. But I mean, if they, John Ledyard brought up a good point on the Pewter Report podcast. I'm going to mention that one more time. He said it's actually kind of good that the 38-3 thing happened and it was like so bad. Because that the ball like barely hit the ground for Drew Brees. if it's going to force Todd Bowles to have to do something different, right? I mean, even the worst defensive coordinator in the world is going to come out with a different game plan. Like, it's not going to be the same exact thing, right? Like, that would be insanity. So, it was so bad that it's going to force Todd Bowles to basically come out. And maybe even Arians said after that game or whatever, like, hey, even after the Saints game week 9, I mean, if we see them again in the playoffs, like, you're playing man coverage. Like, and he probably said it to him when, like, it was a realization that, like, they could play the Saints. Like, no, like, you're playing, like, you can mix in zone here and there, because I'm not saying you don't have to play all man coverage, right? Like, you can't play man coverage every single play. But you can't play zone every single play. So you got to mix it up. But, man, most of the time it should be man-to-man, and just let Carlton Davis on Michael Thomas, and hopefully Sean Murphy-Bunting and Jamel Dean have nice days, and hopefully you can get some four-man pass rush, maybe mixing a blitz there with Devin White, and that's going to be the way you contain them. So we'll see.
Now, as we wrap up the show with our final segment, I do want to look ahead a little bit to that Saints game. We're not going to preview too much, but let me just preface by saying this. A couple weeks ago, we had our good buddy James on the show, and we might have made some comments that I think we're just going to have to own up to now. Pretty much everybody came to the consensus that if the Buccaneers' path to the Super Bowl involves the New Orleans Saints, well, you can go ahead and throw in the towel, because there isn't anything that this team has showed us over 2 games that proves to anybody that they're going to be able to beat New Orleans.
I mean, that's still true, though.
I guess it still rings true, but we're going to have to talk about the ways that they can try and beat New Orleans this week, or else we're just going to be, the worst Bucs podcast on the block. And I don't want that reputation. We might already have that reputation. I don't know. Depends on who you ask. But let's talk about it. Okay, the Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints, the NFL divisional round, this Sunday at 6:40 p.m. It is round 3. It is Brady versus Breeze for possibly the final time ever. And the question I want to ask, what has changed with this Bucs team between this week and week 9? Well, let me start by saying one of the biggest things that I think everybody has noticed. Tom Brady's trust and chemistry in this offense is on an entirely different level than it was not only week 1, which is, goes without saying, but week 9. Yet Antonio Brown, who was, thrown onto the team just because of injuries. I know he really didn't have an idea of what his role would be come week 9, and I think the offense was pretty clear of that. And then obviously we talked about the defense and how they're pretty much lacking pressure now. They lacked pressure against the Saints before, but when they played the Saints before, they were averaging 3 sacks a game, believe it or not. And I think they have like 3 sacks over the last 3 games or 4 games or something like that. So what I want to ask you is, I brought up a lot of points there, but what do you think is the biggest difference between this Bucs team from then and now?
Honestly, I don't think the defense is a huge difference. The biggest difference to me has to be just, it's been remarkable to me how, and it really speaks to the testament of this coaching staff. Because after that bye week, we were all saying, here's the chance you can correct your mistakes, right? Less of the vertical ball, more of the stuff that Tom Brady likes to do, more of the stuff that makes sense, the throwing on first down, utilizing play action, and they've done it. That's the biggest difference, I think. They have completely changed their offensive scheme. It's still the same, same plays and stuff. It's just little wrinkles here and there that they've added in, and the times that they do things and how much they do a certain thing. It's so different from that Saints game. It's not really as much forcing the vertical ball down the field. It's more, play action, let Brady do his thing. Let your playmakers make plays. Let Mike Evans get open. Mike Evans is going to get his. Yeah. Antonio Brown, like you said, more involved in the offense now. That's a big thing. And I think the offensive line has really improved since week 9. But they're going to be without a starter, which they were week 9. Ali Marpet, obviously losing Alex Kappa is less of a bigger deal than losing Ali Marpet, which, Joe Hague just played awful in that Saints game. So hopefully Aaron Stenny on the right side can play a little bit better, and maybe Ryan Jensen or Tristan Wirfs can help him out a little bit. It's tough to give a guard help, but I think that would be the biggest thing for me. Just the offensive philosophy really has really changed since week 9. And it might have something to do with Antonio Brown, like getting his, really getting it in and getting his feet wet more and stuff like that. But it's really shown up. And Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. But I mean, the Bucs have just gotten dominated against the Saints in the trenches for the last two meetings, and really the last like 4 or 5 meetings. Saints have won 5 straight. So that's with one with Dirk Cutter. There's the second game versus the Saints, Dirk Cutter, and then 0-4 versus Bruce Arians. So with Bruce Arians, I should say. So they just dominated the trenches every time. So now the Bucs are just going to turn the tables, and it's going to be tough because, like I said, they with a no 4-man pass rush and losing a starter on the offensive line, so it's already an uphill battle. But Trey Hendrickson didn't play this week, and Trey Hendrickson killed the Bucs 2 times that they played him this year. So we'll see if he plays. It'll be a big loss for the Saints if he doesn't. Big hit for their pass rush, but we'll have to wait for the injury report. But I think the biggest difference is just that this coaching staff was really able to mesh together what Brady wanted to do while also keeping that aggressive mentality, and that's the biggest difference, I think.
Yeah, and I think I want to speak a little bit more just on Brady and what he's been able to do with his offense. You look at the chemistry that they have up until this point, and then you factor in that there wasn't a preseason, there wasn't a training camp. They kind of had their makeshift OTAs at Berkeley Prep, but for him to finally get this offense rolling at the time that they did, it kind of felt like the last possible minute. But they made it work, and yeah, you can call it this coaching staff either being stubborn or just, I guess, flexing to what fixes Brady. But I wanted to speak about Brady and that chemistry because for the longest time, you have playmakers on this offense. Chris Godwin is a playmaker. Mike Evans is a playmaker. Antonio Brown is probably one of the best playmakers in the NFL. And that trust factor going up is such a big deal for this offense because now Brady has the trust to see Mike Evans 35 yards downfield, one-on-one coverage. He's ready to take that chance and throw it to him. And I think that's something that we saw on full display against Washington for, I know he was torching it up against the Lions, but it's a playoff game. So to see that trust kind of transfer over into a bigger stage is really refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to need all hands on deck, right?
Yeah.
Like, they are. They're going to need Mike Evans. They're going to need Chris Godwin. They're going to need Chris Godwin to catch the football. I mean, that's a huge thing, right? And I mean, just like you said, it's clear that Brady, like, I think the chemistry excuse now, you're not going to hear that from me. Like, if they lose to the Saints team and they look all out of sorts, that's on them. Like, there is no chemistry excuse. Week 1, sure. Week 9, because you had, 8 games together before then. But you were still trying to put in Antonio Brown and stuff like that. So that's why I go, But this week, you should be firing on almost all cylinders. Hopefully Ronald Jones can come back, be healthy. But this week there's no more excuses now about chemistry. Brady should have every receiver locked in, and they should be ready to go, I think.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that being said, I think that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you guys so much for checking us out on any of our podcast outlets or watching with video over on our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that little bell icon so you get notified every single time we upload a show like this one, go live, do a call-in show, upload a hype video, whatever the case may be. All sorts of great content and truly the best way to experience the show. Shout out to our good friend Frat Pat Rat 99559. That's a lot of numbers, but he left us a review over on Apple Podcasts, and I think that is the coolest thing. He says, good coverage, helped me get engaged with a new team. 5-star rating. Found this podcast when I was looking for some live reaction videos to Brady signing with the Bucs. As a longtime Brady lover and a Patriots fan, this show helped me get up to speed on a team that I've suddenly started to follow on a weekly basis. Evan and Rhett seem to have a solid dynamic. I don't know about that one. And they put together a good show. I don't know about that one either. Go Bucs. Go Bucs, buddy. But thank you guys so much. Those reviews definitely help the show a lot more than you think they do. So if you have the time in your day, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. You don't have to, but if you do, it really would kick ass. So thank you to our good buddy Frat Rat Pat, something like that. But thanks, buddy. We truly do appreciate you. Check out the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Bucs news as it happens. Speaking of Buccaneer news as it happens, I can see him on his phone, so he's probably posting about Kevin Minter being added to the COVID list. But you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter. Both of those are Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We're going to talk to you guys on Thursday. It'll be our game preview show for the Buccaneers divisional round matchup against those goddamn New Orleans Saints. Until then.
For the third time.
Oh, man. Third time's the charm, hopefully. We'll go into detail a little bit more on Thursday, but until then, I am Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you guys later. Go Bucks.